Hello sweet people, today we're making this veggie garden inspired needlebook, a cheerful little project to keep your sewing accessories organized and cozy. This video is a visual companion to my full text and photo tutorial available in my Etsy shop. There you'll find detailed recommendations for tools and materials, the full pattern, and even a printable care tag you can tuck into a pocket if you're making this book as a gift. Speaking of gifts, fill this needlebook with quality sewing supplies and you've got a lovely present for any craft enthusiast. Liking this video will help me immensely to reach more crafty people like yourself, so please hit that button now before you get too deep into the project. Alright, let's dig in. Print out your pattern pages as described in the instructions. Page 1 on plain paper, page 2 on sticky label paper. Or if you prefer traditional cut and trace method, print the full pattern page only. For the page 1, cut out all the elements first. For these 3 pattern pieces, score along the folding lines. You can use a sharp end of your scissors or a bone folder. Then make folds along the scored lines. For the tomato piece, make holes with a hole puncher or a toothpick. For the sticky label page, cut out the whole sections marked with dotted lines. The sections contain elements in one color. To transfer to felt, peel away the backing from the label paper sections and stick the whole areas to felt. Transfer paper patterns using chalk or an erasable pen. Using the folding lines, transfer extra markings to felt by folding away and then tracing along the folded lines. Make sure to transfer all the markings, including the dots, on one of the tomato pieces. Time to cut out all the elements. The ones on the label paper should be cut out along with the paper layer. You can use pinking shears to cut the top edge of the pockets and the needle minder. I think they look more fun like this. After you've cut out the spine piece, reserve the sticky label part. We'll use it later when embroidering. Reserve the offcuts and chop them up finely. We'll need them for stuffing later. And now, the time for the satisfying peeling off the label paper. Label paper offcuts can be used to pick up all the teeny tiny felt bits from your working desk. Very neat. Don't forget your pieces of fabric and fusible web if you're using it. Lay out all the elements to make sure you didn't miss anything. What a pretty sight! And we've only just begun. To make a carrot, you'll need the wool rovings roughly the size of your palm. This will make a middle-sized carrot. You can use much less to make a smaller one. See what you prefer better. Lay your fiber on the felting mat and fold lengthwise. Fold the smaller section in and start rolling it tightly. Secure with felting needle so fibers hold together. Needle felt all around. My tops always turn out a little rough, so I like to add extra fiber to smoothen the carrot a bit more. You only need to form a rough shape. Wet felting will do the rest. To wet felt, you'll need very warm water and a bar of soap. Wet your carrot slightly and start rolling it between your palms. Put a bit of pressure to compact the fibers. Keep adding some water or soap as needed. If your carrot is way too big, like in this case, you can totally chop off the end diagonally and continue with felting to smoothen the cut area. When you're happy with the firmness and the size, squeeze the water out, rinse, and then pat dry with a towel. Leave it out in the sun if you can to fully dry. When your carrot is dry, and I can't say I didn't speed up the process with a hairdryer, go around it with scissors and chop off the excess fluff. But honestly, a smooth carrot or a fluffy carrot is entirely up to you. Now go around with white thread and make small horizontal stitches on the carrot. These are the root spots. Leave a small amount of white thread for the main root. To make the leafy greens, pull green threads through the top of the carrots. I took a shortcut and used a sharp tapestry needle instead. Threading 6 strands at once can be a challenge. When you've got a nice green bunch, twist threads together and tie a very tight knot close to the carrot's top. Chop off the excess and you're done. Separate the threads a bit if you like this fluffy style. Or you could have just used a carrot button. I've glued a bit of green top to this wooden button to match the look. But there are amazing ceramic buttons I've seen around. They probably would be a better match. Anywho, here are some books I've made earlier that have different size carrots. Check them out. Align the spine piece with the center of a book cover. Pin it in place and whip stitch from 2 sides to attach. Now we'll use the sticky label spine piece reserved earlier to transfer positions of various elements to embroider. We're not going to draw the elements themselves, rather highlight their locations and middle points. Let's start by embroidering the top tomato. The detailed diagram is presented in the written tutorial, but in the essence, you'll use the satin stitch. To shape it up, make a straight stitch in the middle, 2 stitches of the equal length to its left, then 1 stitch a bit smaller, and the last one smaller still. Repeat on the opposite side of the first straight stitch. Because it's such a small element, it's a bit hard to make it quite round, but if you follow this simple diagram, your result should be decent enough. Now the small tomatoes need to go on branches. They're tiny and can be done with 5 stitches. Refer to the diagram in the tutorial. Once you've done embroidering all 5 tomatoes, including the big one, move to the opposite side of the spine and repeat the tomato challenge again. Now let's make a flower. Find the middle of a daisy, create 1 petal first, followed by the one opposite to it. Then make another pair of stitches across, fill in the spaces between with 4 more petals, and you've got your daisy. Repeat for the opposite side. Make a small cross for the daisy's center and the same on the opposite side. Starting in the middle of the book spine, make bigger butterfly wings with 2 lazy daisy petals. Fill each one with a smaller stitch in the middle. Make 2 smaller bottom wings, also add in a stitch in each one to fill them. Super nice. Embroider a longer tomato branch, small leaves and stalks connecting the smaller tomatoes to the branch. Repeat for the opposite side. If you need to refresh the chalky faded lines, use your pattern once again. Embroider the division lines on the spine. Now the very last bit. Make 2 small stitches for the butterfly's body and 2 angled stitches for the antenna. Well, now you're done with the spine. I guarantee you, if you stuck along for it, the rest will be super easy for you. It will take time, but won't be as challenging. Using the pattern markings, find the middle of the book's left panel. Align the butterfly wings to the center, pin them, and then whip stitch to attach. Attach the top wings part starting in the middle, and then as you get to the scalloped edge, make stitches on top of each scallop and in the valley points between them. Attach the body and then the pink dots. Oh, it's a very chunky butterfly. Draw dots on the wings and the butterfly's antennae. Start by embroidering the antennae with split stitches. Make them especially small at the rounded parts. Then make French knots for the dots. I usually make 3 or 4 wraps and tighten them really well. Then 2 more dots in white on the upper wings and for the eyes. And your sweet butterfly is ready for an imaginary takeoff. Oh wait, don't go too far. Let's move to the right side. Align the soil piece to the spine so it goes up to the middle of the page, and then pin it in place. There should be a slight overhang on the right and the bottom of the page. Whip stitch it in place along the scalloped edge first, and again make stitches on the scallop's peaks and valleys, and then along the spine. Lay out all the applique elements on your page and note or mark locations for them. If you need, make small dot points to assist you later. Attach all the elements in this order. First, all the ones in white, then in yellow, maroon, pink, light green, dark green, and finally orange. Draw the details of the bead, turnip and the leaves with an erasable pen. First, embroider the beads details, running stitch for the body and split stitches for the veins on the leaves. Repeat the embroidery for the turnip. Mark small scattered dots on the soil and then embroider them by making small 8-point stars. As you're moving from one star to another, make sure to leave longer floats at the back. If you pull on the thread too hard, it might cinch the cover a bit. Continue all around the soil. I feel they add some nice touch to the texture of the soil. For the next part, you'll need a sharper tool to draw. Go ahead and fill the spaces between the dots with some wriggly worms. Take your time. To begin making worms, you'll need to bring your thread up, approximately trace your worm with the thread, then bring your thread to the wrong side. It creates kind of a float. Then secure with a knot at the back and cut it off. Let's do it again. Bring your thread up, trace your worm with the thread, bring it to the wrong side and then secure with a knot. Repeat for the rest of the worms. As a result, you get a bunch of these little floats on your cover. Now, using a different thread, we'll be securing the wiggly worms to the cover. Make small anchor points first to create a rough curvature, followed by stitches close to each other. Don't be afraid to tug on your worms to shape them up as you're going along. This process is called couching. It's a very old embroidery technique that is absolutely excellent for creating curved shapes. I really love this stage, and the worms, they feel so textured under your fingers. Well, it's time to give the cover a gentle iron. Use the wool setting and iron through a thin cloth. No steam allowed. Now for the last bit, attaching the carrot. Decide roughly where you would like to attach it, then sew it on as if it was a button, using the back of it. Come to think about it, you can probably attach it as a normal 2-hole button as well. Well, it's up to you, but make sure it's attached securely while not tugging too much on the cover itself. It should not be warped. Et voila! The front cover is ready. Now we're going to prepare some elements for the inside page. First, let's work on the small pocket. Whip stitch the daisy and its center to one of the pocket pieces. Then, align two pieces of the pocket along the straight edge and blanket stitch, starting and ending the stitch around 0.7 mm away from the sides. When that's done, align the pocket with the center of the right side of the book spread. Follow the markings. It should sit around 1 cm away from the bottom. Pin it to the page. Now we're going to make 2 diagonal blanket stitches into the corner of the pocket, and at the same time grabbing the fabric of the page as well. Double stitching is necessary for extra security. So here's the stitch number 1 and then number 2. Make sure the stitches grab the fabric at the back and you're stitching through all 3 layers. Continue blanket stitching around the pocket together with the page up until the next corner. And again, make 2 stitches in the corner for extra security. Then pull the thread under the very first stitch. Make a knot, stitch away, and cut your thread off. This cute little pocket is done. Grab your tie cover and mark its center. Embroider the butterfly in the same way as for the spine. Tuck it away in the pocket for now. Let's move to the left side of the page and work on the pockets first. Pin the needle minder to the center of the pockets, as per the pattern markings. Stitch them together with a running stitch, stopping around 0.7 cm away from the edge. Pin the pockets to the page, aligning the piece to the spine markings. There will be a slight overhang at the bottom and on the left side. Blanket stitch to the page along the spine edge, reinforcing the first and the last stitches. Stop stitching around 0.7 cm away from the edge. Reinforce the last stitch. And the same as with the small pocket, ensure to grab the page fabric as you're going along. Make running stitches to separate smaller sections of the pocket. Going from the bottom, start around half a centimeter away from the edge and then work your way up. There will be a little float at the back as you are stitching over the needle minder. Reinforce the top stitch, repeat for the rest of the pockets. Lay out all the applique elements onto the page and mark their locations if necessary. Whip stitch them to attach in whatever order you prefer. Now for the embroidery. Start with a sepal for the green tomato, making 3 lazy daisy stitches, but with kind of inverted petals facing away from the center. Then make tomato seeds again with lazy daisy stitches and then smaller straight stitches in between them. Mark the center for the orange tomato sepal, then make 5 lazy daisy stitches to form a star. Sepals for cherry tomatoes will be simple 6-point stars with straight stitches. Draw a stalk and then embroider it with split stitches. Then, the same way as we did for the soil, scatter some white stars between the tomatoes. Very pretty. If you want, add some highlights to the tomatoes to show their ever-shining nature. And you're done with the embroidery on the page. When you iron, make sure to leave some of the markings on the right side for the spine and the midpoints. Grab a length of stranded cotton and start twisting its ends in the opposite directions. When the twist is tight enough, bring the opposite sides together, creating a twisty string. Make a knot on the end of the string. Now you'll need the 2 pieces of the tomato pincushion. Align the green sepal over the top of the piece that has the dots. Using the green thread, whip stitch it to the tomato along the inner edge, leaving the tops unstitched, and do not cut the thread just yet. Align this tomato piece with the second one and blanket stitch along the top edge with the sepal. When you get to the midpoint, insert the green string, keeping the knot inside. Make sure the knot is big enough and it won't slip through the stitches. When you reach the end of the sepal, change the thread to red and continue blanket stitching around the tomato, leaving an opening of around 3 to 4 centimeters. But do not cut the thread just yet. Now stuff the tomato with the offcuts we've reserved earlier. Make it plump enough but not bursting through the seams. Complete the blanket stitch. To make the cushion dimples, you will need to go back and forth with your thread at the dot points, tugging to cinch. It creates a nice visual effect. I think I like it. And here's the cushion that I made earlier. You can use it as a pincushion as you're working on a sewing project. To make the fabric insert, align 2 pieces of fabric wrong sides together, pin them, and simply blanket stitch around. Check out one of the links below for a faster technique with a fusing web. Gather all the elements for the final assembly. Make a horizontal marking across the spine. Fold the velvet ribbon in half and align it to the center of the page, from the wrong side. Backstitch the ribbon to the page along the marked early line. Make sure you're stitching through all the layers of the ribbon and the fabric. Fold your elastic in half, align it to the midpoint of the page on the right. Make small stitches to attach. Make sure it's secure since it will be used quite a lot. I usually make stitches around the loop and a couple of them through. Don't worry about making it too neat at this stage, because next we'll be attaching a tie cover over it. So whip stitch it in place, leaving the edge open. Align the fabric piece to the center of the left page, around a centimeter away from the book's edge. Mark a stitch line on the fabric, roughly half a centimeter away from the edge of the fabric. Now, when we figured out all our measurements, pin the fabric in place and backstitch along the marked line. I usually work these last steps using a sewing machine, but I was surprised how much more satisfying it feels backstitching by hand instead. Reinforce the first and the last stitches. Align the tomato pincushion to the middle of the page. Attach it over the fabric piece with a couple of secure stitches. Cut off the excess string. Fold the edges of the rickrack ribbon and attach it to both sides with a couple of back stitches. To make sure the ribbon won't sag, make another stitch midway or thereabouts. Iron the page and you're ready for the very last bit. The only thing left is to sew the pages together. Align the spreads wrong sides facing each other and pin them, or use quilting clips or binder clips like in here to hold them securely. Make sure to align the spines first and foremost. There will be uneven edges and overhangs here and there, but don't worry too much about it for now. Start the blanket stitch on top, as shown here. Make diagonal stitches into corners for a neater look. As you're stitching over the elastic, ensure the horizontal bars of the blanket stitch are visible on the front cover. Pick up all the layers as you're going along. When you reach the point that requires trimming, go ahead and make sure there's no stitching in the way. You will need to stitch through the ribbon as well, making sure the stitch appears on the front. Finish the blanket stitch, make a knot and stitch away to the page. Cut your thread off. Can you believe it even? We're done! If you're given this book as a present, print out a care label and tuck it in the white pocket. Thank you for your patience and for following along this journey. I really hope you've enjoyed this challenge and will adore using your very own unique needle book. Leave a comment if you like this tutorial and would like to see more of my videos. What should I make next?